So in video 2, I should have numbered the other one, we're going to manipulate points on a screen, okay? Because in the very first video, we just drew points. That's all we did. And do the same thing here. Pause this video, type in code and run. Again, I'm not using Paizo, so ignore the bits that say on screen, ignore, not to worry about. So let's have a look. So this is where we got to. We drew 4 points. Actually, it was quite messy. Not that impressive, I thought. So my issue is, let's go back to 1 and ask the question. As it stands, that line there simply creates a point at that point and draws it. But I can't do anything else with it. It's there and then it vanishes once that line of code is written. What I need to be able to do is hold on to it. Now the mechanism in programming of holding onto objects and things is called using variables. Variables is a way of holding on to data, holding on to objects, and in this case, holding on to tools or holding on to structures and larger bits of data. Right, so at the moment, as that stands, that doesn't let me do anything else. But let's rewrite the line. Get rid of the draw. Let's not draw it straight away, okay? But what we'll do is we'll take that point and we're going to hook it onto something, right? And I'm going to use the small letter P because I'm being pretty unimaginative. And I'm going to add that at the beginning. Now, what does that do? Sticking that before the word point. Now, this is a lot to say inside here. So what we're going to do in this video is explain that line of code and draw it and move it and do something like change its color, right, in the same video. So we'll work our way through it and we'll try to do this quite quickly, but we're going to take our time on this question. What does this line mean and how does it work? Because this concept affects all programming, gives you an insight into how it all fits together. So first of all, like this bit up here, we create a point at this. Point is something which is a tool to create points inside this toolbox, right? So I've got a point and I create it at 100 going on horizontal, 300 coming down, and I'm going to hook onto it with this letter P. Okay, so hold on to that idea. What do I mean hook onto it? Well, in this line above, I had to directly go to the point and draw it. But I want to do something more to this point. I want to change. Let's do it simple. Let's start with the simplest thing you could do. Let's just change its color, right? So what I'm going to temporarily do so this doesn't draw this one onto screen is comment it out, okay? It's going to complain my environment because it doesn't like the comment. So I've got a point and I've created it and I've just hooked onto it, but that's all I've done. So let me ask you a question. If you ran that code, would anything appear on the screen? If not, why not? Why doesn't anything? It's because you haven't asked it to draw. So let's try that first. P, right, and hit a dot. Now, what is this P hitting a dot business all about? Well, let's see if I can explain this to you. Look at this point here. Right. Let's go back to the thing I've taken out in the comment. Get rid of all of that and hit the dot. Remember this list. I've got draw, canvas, clone, config, get x, get y, id, move, set fill, set outline, set width, undraw, x, y, blah, blah, blah. It's quite a ton of stuff, right? All of these are tools that are directly built into this point. This point comes with a whole bunch of useful tools for you to use. In this case, in this line underneath, however, so let's just get rid of that and comment it out. In this line here, I'm creating the point and I'm popping a link to it in P. Now what then happens is that I can just use the letter P instead of writing this whole thing here. Instead of writing all of this, I can write this. It's like shorthand. Think of it like shorthand. I've taken that whole lot and I'm going to manipulate with a small p. So I hit P, and like I would just a moment ago, I hit dot, and suddenly I get access to all the same stuff. Draw, canvas, clone, config, get this, get y, id, move, so it's exactly the same. This then gives me some power to manipulate So let's just do the very first thing, right? Let's draw it. Just to prove the point, we have to say where we're going to draw it, so we pop win in just as we did before. Okay, so that should give me a point. That point hooked into here, and then manipulating this shorthand letter. Don't have to play with that anymore. I can just use the letter which refers to it and draw it. Right, and if you can see that, there it is, there, just there where my cursor is. So exactly the same. If you want to see what the difference is, right, let's change its color. Now, if I do P, there is a function, I scroll down, it's called set outline. And if I open the bracket, it gives me a color. So I can put a word in here. Let's just put red. Right, so this point is now going to be drawn red. Let's have a look, see if it works. There it is, red. Now, before I continue, just so we can make this absolutely clear, this line, to set it to red, I have to do it before I draw it on the screen. If I draw it on the screen and then set the outline to red, I'm setting the outline to red after I've actually popped it on the screen. And you'll find that it won't, well, let's check the question. Will it actually do anything? So let's cut it from there. Let's draw it to the screen, and let's run that and see what happens. Well, how about that? You learn something every day. You can draw it to the screen, and interestingly, if you then change its color to red, it will still turn red. So how come? How does that work? There's a lot going on in the background of this particular code. And it's very easy when you look at this just to think, oh, it's just some kind of magic. It is almost like magic. Essentially, this line was doing a little bit more than we realized. What this line actually does is give me a wire which connects my code to the screen. So when I draw it, it doesn't actually just draw it, it sends data of this point object along the wire that I created up here to the screen. And once that connection's been made, I can then change things about my point, and it will automatically send that information down to the wire, which is quite clever, I think. So that's a very basic way of creating a reference to and holding on to a point I create. In the next video, I'm going to look at how you can move it. And let's have a look at how we can. So we can draw it in one place, then move it, and then draw it again. And let's see how that works.